She was a young woman who had her entire life in front of her until it was taken away in a senseless act of violence. Tonight, we're covering a tragic case of 22-year-old Logan Federico, who was viciously murdered on May 3rd, 2025, in a burglary gone wrong. If you're active on social media, you may have seen clips of her father passionately advocating on his daughter's behalf. But one of the most heartbreaking parts of this case for me is that it all could have been prevented. Let's get into it.
One shot, one life gone, and one father left to pay the unthinkable price.
No one's going to pinch me. I'm not going to wake up. Think about that. I'm officially the father of a murdered child.
It's my life. I think I got cheated. I won't be able to walk her down an aisle.
Hi, I'm Katie Ring, and this is Crime House Daily, your weekday true crime companion. We follow the cases making headlines now where justice is still unfolding. This is a Night Watch episode bringing you today's biggest crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Crime House Daily so you never miss an episode. This episode discusses active criminal cases and breaking news. The information we share is based on what's publicly available at the time of recording and may change as new evidence comes to light. We aim to inform, not to decide guilt or innocence, so everyone mentioned is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. 22-year-old Logan Federico was from North Carolina. She was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend who was taken from her loved ones too soon. Logan's murder sparked a multi-jurisdictional manhunt by South Carolina law enforcement. But when the truth about her killer came to light, Logan's family realized that the system had failed their daughter because her killer had a lengthy and violent record, but was roaming the streets freely. Now, Logan's father is confronting lawmakers and demanding answers to a single question. Why did they let a man with this kind of record back onto the streets? In tonight's case, many are now left with a haunting thought. If the criminal justice system had worked as intended, Logan may still be alive. She might be achieving everything she set out to do. So who was the 22-year-old young woman with her entire life in front of her, whose death hopefully sparks systemic change? Logan Federico grew up in Waxhaw, North Carolina, located just outside the city of Charlotte. She was loved dearly by everyone who surrounded her. She was known to have a big personality and loved a fun night out with the girls, but she was also very driven. Before her life was taken, Logan was a student at South Piedmont Community College, about 10 miles from where she grew up. At the time, she is working 2 jobs because she's saving up to transfer to the College of Charleston, where she decides she wants to study to become an elementary school teacher. In May 2025, Logan heads down to the University of South Carolina to visit some of her best friends. She is a people person who loves hanging out with her friends, and these are the weekends she lives for. Logan is also a huge Swiftie, and now that she's officially 22 years old, she says her life's soundtrack is the Taylor Swift song 22. She says it's almost like the song was written just for her. I can imagine her blasting it on the way down to visit her friends. Just like the song, she's embarking on adulthood, but still finding time to enjoy being young. Once she arrives in South Carolina, she heads to her friend's rental house located on Cypress Street in Columbia. And then her and her friends head out for a night out in downtown Columbia, where they bar hop and have a blast dancing together to live music. A little before 3 a.m. on May 3rd, the crew is ready to call it a night, so they head back to the house. Usually you'd expect something bad to happen on the way home, but they all make it safely to the house and end up passing out. But when Logan's friends wake up, they realize something is horribly wrong. They realize that the house has clearly been broken into. As her friends look around, they make their way into the room where Logan was sleeping. And when they enter, they find Logan lying on the floor with a bullet wound to her chest, and she appears to be dead. Around 11:15 a.m., the Columbia Police Department receives a call about a young woman who was found dead in her overnight rental. Strangely, this call comes in just 1 minute after a separate report about a stolen vehicle. While the two calls don't seem related, both groups of responding officers are heading to the same neighborhood on Cypress Street. Inside Logan's rental, officers are met with a tragic scene. They first notice all of the signs of a break-in, including the fact that Logan's wallet is missing. Then, when they examine Logan's body, they notice a single gunshot wound to her chest. There doesn't appear to be signs of a struggle, and Logan doesn't appear to have any other injuries or signs of sexual assault. Officers speak with her friends to try and understand what could have happened, but they don't suspect Logan's friends or anything about their night out is connected to the death, especially because of the other police report they received next door. Their neighbors had reported that one of their cars and one of their guns was stolen. Authorities believe that after stealing the car and the gun from the neighbors, the suspect headed over to the next house to rob it, and that's when he encountered 22-year-old Logan Federico. With a violent murder and an armed suspect, authorities realize that they need to start moving quickly. After 22-year-old Logan Federico is found dead on the morning of May 3, 2025, investigators quickly realized that her killer had burglarized a different home earlier in the night and had stolen a car and a gun that had been used to murder her. And that's not all. Pretty soon, CPD officers learned that another nearby house was burglarized shortly after Logan died. The robber also took bank cards from that house. Police need to find the suspect before anyone else gets hurt. Fortunately, there's a ton of information they can use to track him down, including the vehicle he's driving and the bank cards he's stolen. They begin monitoring activity on all of the cards, and soon one of the cards pings in Lexington County, which is only 3 miles west of Columbia. Soon after, investigators are alerted to another transaction, and another, and another. Officers are watching the data in real time as a suspect they're looking for goes on what they call a shopping spree. Next, he travels about another 30 miles down to Saluda County. Officers alert their colleagues in neighboring jurisdictions and get ready to close in. But as they gear up, they notice something strange. The transactions suddenly stop. They have no idea where he is now. Worry begins to set in as authorities feared they may have waited too long. They prepare to look for other clues before Logan's killer slips through their fingers. And then, all of a sudden, authorities in Saluda County find something. There's a reported vehicle breakdown in their county. The driver called a tow truck, and based on the information from the towing company, the broken down vehicle matches the one stolen from Cypress Street earlier that day. Saluda County authorities alert Lexington County authorities that their killer is headed back to their county to the town of Gaston. Now, officers from the Lexington County Sheriff's Department, the Columbia Police Department, and the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, otherwise known as SLED, join forces to zero in on the suspect. Luckily, the tow truck driver has the address the suspect requested the car be towed to, so police rush over. But once they arrive, they quickly find themselves with another problem on their hands. The suspect realizes what's happening and he flees into the woods. Officers chase after him, but pretty soon he's out of sight. They continue combing the woods for any sign of him. Meanwhile, back at the office, other officers learn that their suspect's name is Alexander Dickey. And it turns out Dickey has an extensive criminal history. But despite this history, Dickey has barely had any consequences. He is 30 years old, and he already has 40 different charges, 25 of which were felony charges. And the craziest part is that most of them were simply dismissed. He was sentenced in 8 cases, stemming from charges such as robbery, drug possession, and larceny. Most recently, in 2023, Dickey pleaded guilty to third-degree burglary. He received a 5-year prison sentence in that case, but was given credit for over 410 days that had already been served. After his release, he was put on probation, which was ended early for, quote, compliance. Now, authorities are realizing that Dickey did not change his ways after regaining freedom. Surprise, surprise. They believe Logan's murder was a way of him getting away with burglary again, instead of facing harsher punishment as a repeat offender. And if they don't catch him, He just might get away with it. Officers from the joint team continue their relentless search for him. They comb through the woods throughout the night and into the next day, and it was only a matter of time before Dickey's arrogance betrayed him. Because then, around 4 p.m. on Sunday, May 4th, they get a call from a Lexington County resident who says they saw a driver steal a car before fleeing on foot. The driver's description matches Alexander Dickey. Officers fan out to that area, and surprisingly, Dickey returns to his friend's house in Gaston. But he can't get in, so he forces his way inside. Fortunately, authorities are notified about the struggle and race back to the house, where they order Dickey to surrender. But he'll do anything to avoid facing the consequences for his crimes. Instead of exiting the house peacefully, Dickey sets it on fire. In the chaos, some officers risk their own lives and walk into the fire to drag him out of the house. Dickey is brought to a nearby hospital, and after receiving treatment, he's officially in police custody. Deputies from the Lexington County Sheriff's Office bring him into their station, where investigators question him for several hours. With all of the evidence they've collected so far, they are confident that Dickey's the one who killed Logan Federico. He's handed a slew of charges, including murder, 2 counts of first-degree burglary, 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person, 2 counts of grand larceny of a motor vehicle, and 3 counts of financial transaction card theft. He's denied bond and held in Lexington County. But the case is far from over. Soon, the full truth of Alexander Dickey's past will be revealed. On May 4th, 2025, Alexander Dickey is given numerous charges in the murder of Logan Federico, as well as his ensuing crimes. As of this recording, officials have yet to determine whether Dickey's bond hearing will be moved to Richland County, where Logan was murdered. South Carolina is a death penalty state, so Dickey could be facing capital punishment. On top of that, he could be federally charged for his firearms offense, which means it could be a long time before we get any major updates on this case. However, as the news makes headlines and more information comes out about Dickey's criminal past, Logan's loved ones, as well as members of the public, are becoming more and more outraged. It turns out Dickey wasn't just treated with leniency. Officials completely dropped the ball when it came to tracking his crimes. In August 2014, Dickey was charged with grand larceny, and at that time, his arrest charges and fingerprints were filed with SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. At the state investigative agency, it's SLED's job to maintain criminal records across jurisdictions. However, that same month, Dickey received 4 more warrants for burglary and larceny, but this time, SLED did not receive additional fingerprints for that set of charges. And then, the same apparent mistake happened 2 months later after Dickey was charged again. That makes a total of 2 arrests and 7 charges that SLED doesn't have information on. So Dickey was able to negotiate lighter charges, which helped him get lighter sentencing in 2023 before Logan Federico was killed. Law enforcement officials in Lexington County maintain that even though Dickey's SLED records were incomplete, the court system still had his full history. But that doesn't provide any comfort to Logan's family. When Logan's father, Steve Federico, hears about how Dickey's botched rap sheet allowed him to go on to kill Logan, he says the news hits him almost as hard as when he first learned she was dead. While he's grateful that his daughter's murder was solved within 36 hours, he still thinks there are glaring issues in the system, issues that allowed Alexander Dickey to cross paths with Logan in the first place. And Steve won't rest until he sees these issues fixed. On September 29, 2025, he speaks at a congressional hearing in North Carolina for victims of violent crimes, making calls for reform to prevent something similar from happening to anyone else in the future. Let's watch.
She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone. Why? Because Alexander Devontae Dickey, who was arrested 39 times, 25 felonies, was on the street. How about that? How good are we doing for our family? How good are you doing for your kids? He should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed.
During his testimony, Steve says that the chief prosecutor in charge of Logan's case hasn't reached out to their family at all. Now, lawmakers are calling for the prosecutor, Byron Gibson, to be impeached. But Steve has also described some positive outcomes from his advocacy work. He says he's connected with other parents across the country who share similar losses. Some of them now communicate daily. Steve and his circle have a clear vision. They press lawmakers to reconsider how repeat offenders are tracked and sentenced. Several of them now advocate for stronger data sharing between counties and mandatory fingerprint verification for every criminal offense. Because of this, Logan's case has become a focal point in debates about public safety and accountability, and lawmakers are still arguing over these highly debated policies. Personally, I don't know how they're still arguing over this, because how was a person with 39 arrests and 25 felonies let out on the streets? I don't think that should ever happen. In the meantime, Alexander Dickey will hopefully finally receive the punishment he deserves. And as always, we'll make sure to keep you updated on any new developments. What did you think of tonight's case? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments. See you next time. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Crime House Daily and follow us on social media at CrimeHouse247 for real-time updates, because the pursuit of justice never stops.